बनाइए। यशस्वी ठाकुर।
Yes. Hello, Rohit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you signal me whenever you want me to start.
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल सर बिल्कुल मैं करूंगा सर.
ठीक.
यशस्वी मैडम मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
यस सर, आ रही है.
प्लीज आप इंट्रोडक्टरी रिमार्क प्रोसीड करिए.
ओके. Okay, sir. Namaskar, everyone. I, Dr. Yashasvi Thakur, welcome you all to this 12th day of 30 Days of International Winter School, Navigating Agricultural Transformations for Upliftment of Rural Excellence, Nature 2024, organized by the AgriMeet Foundation Bharat in collaboration with CIMMYT Mexico, Southern Federal University Russia, ICARDA Lebanon, World Agroforestry Center for International Forest Research Kenya, ICRISAT Hyderabad, SKLTSHU Telangana, MGUVV Durg, CCAS HAU Hisar, IGKV Raipur, IARI New Delhi, MHU Karnal, NDRI Karnal, ICR IARI New Delhi, ICR DCR Puttur Karnataka, Stanford University and University of California, etc. Today we have with us Dr. Shiv Kumar Dhyani, Country Director SIPOR ICRF Asia Continental Program. Dr. Shiv Kumar Dhyani was born in Lansdowne, Uttarakhand. After doing MSc in botany, Sir did a 2-year diploma honors in forestry from FRI Dehradun, PhD coursework from School of Forestry, Mississippi State University, USA, and PhD in botany from Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, Meghalaya. Sir has devoted more than 4 decades to research, training, coordination, and management of natural resources, farming systems, watershed management, and agroforestry. Dr. Dhyani is presently the country director SIPOR ICRF Asia Continental Program. He joined the South Asia Regional Program SARP ICRF as a senior agroforestry specialist in July 2018 after completing 39 years in the Indian Council of Agricultural Research ICR DARE Government of India, where he has served in various positions including 2 terms of 10 years as Director of Central Agroforestry Research Institute, Capri. Sir, as the President of Indian Society of Agroforestry, ISAF, played a key role in organizing the Third World Congress on Agroforestry at Delhi in 2014. As one of the leading scientists of ICR, he has played an important role in the development and implementation of the National Agroforestry Policy 2014, the first country in the world, followed by the Agroforestry Mission and other initiatives. Sir is now contributing to the regional research and development agenda of the Asia and is well connected to the agroforestry fraternity of India, the region, and at the global level as well. Sir has presented his research results in more than 100 research papers in international and national journals of repute and 6 books and has received several accolades and awards for his outstanding work in this field. With these words, I would like to make it over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yashasvi.
Thank you, sir.
And greetings to all those who are online to this very unique program. And before I initiate, I want to congratulate the organizers and the AgriMeet, and in particular, Dr. Ankush Sharma, who got hold of me about a month back. And I find really this is an unique initiative where a number of organizations, it's very difficult to count them, but what ASFP just now presented, and to bring all of them to organize this such a, I mean, that's also a very excellent initiative where the title itself indicates that it is really need of the hour and very timely. And Ankur, how much time I'll be having?
सर 1 घंटे का लेक्चर, 15 मिनट का डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशन.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. But please remind me if I'm delayed or yeah. So that will be very good. So
Okay.
yes, before I proceed further, I was just indicating that the topic of this 30 days course is really excellent, Nature 2024. So I'll be highlighting some of the issues as well as opportunities what the global as well as regional and local agriculture is facing. And Yashasvi has already mentioned that our organization, International Center for Research and Agroforestry at Kenya, is also one of the organizers, and I'm also part of this. And the topic of my presentation today is agroforestry for climate resilient agriculture and green economic transition. If you feel that I am going a little fast, then please indicate. Now, before I proceed about the topic, let me just introduce the organization which I am representing. Many times people get confused that what is the C4 ICRAF? So, in fact, these are the two CG centers, Center for International Forestry Research, that is called C4, and World Agroforestry ICRAF. So that the two organizations earlier working independently have integrated in 2020, and now they are known as C4 ICRAF. And we are working to solve the global challenges. These are two world-class research institutions delivering actionable solutions on the role of trees, forests, and landscapes. C4 ICRAF works at the nexus of 5 interconnected areas where trees can make a difference, including the biodiversity, climate, value chains, food, and equity. The C4 was founded in 1993, while ICRAF in 1978, and both are the non-profit science institution, generate and apply evidence to meet today's challenges. C4 and ICRAF are members of CGIAR system, and you have observed a number of CGIAR institutions are also organizers of this nature. And the headquarters of ICRAF is at Nairobi in Kenya, while the C4 is Bogor, Indonesia, and with operations in more than 64 countries. We have more than 192 active partnerships, and our strategy is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Now these challenges, and this is a little older version, where you can see the IPCC's latest report that was about 2 years back. A dire warning was issued by the UN Secretary General that time is running out, and yes, the damages have already taken place, and the climate tipping points lie alarmingly close. And the activity of human has already warmed the planet 1.1 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level, and it is increasing. So these consequences are observed by each and every one of us here at the local level, at the regional level, as well as the international or global level. What we are finding that there are varying rainfall, more intense and longer droughts are taking place, shift and shortening of the seasons, except summer with intense heat waves, decline in river flows, limiting irrigation and domestic uses, rise in sea level, particularly those coastal areas, and flooding in some cases. And ultimately, this is affecting the performance of the crops, of course, economics, social expenditure, etc., all are increasing. And carbon is reported to be the largest contributor, almost 50% of the total greenhouse gases. Now, some of those examples, even if you might have observed last year, if we say the Europe faced its worst drought last year in more than 500 years. China last year recorded its worst heat waves since 1961, accompanied by 30% and 60% rainfall declines in July and August. And at India, if you can also remember, the temperature which increased in the month of February has affected BT. Now, if this is a little bit older version, this was the precipitation significantly over broad areas globally. And if you see here, this was in fact from 1901 to 2005. And if you see this, the two parts of the globe, the particular areas like Southern South America, large part of the America, then Northern Europe, North Asia, and Central Asia, there is increasing rainfall. While the other part, where India is also located, that is Southern Asia, Africa, there has been observed that there is a decline in the rainfall. But this trend was from 1900 to 2005. Has it changed since then? No, rather it's worsening. And a study we did in Bundelkhand when I was posted there for 65 years analysis we did, particularly the rainfall temperature. And what we find that in 65 years, about 100 millimeter rainfall was reduced, less. At the same time, the temperature, particularly in the winter, was increasing. Summer, of course, was a little increased, but the winter temperature was affected more. Now, these are some indications, and even this year also, you might have seen, only if we see Delhi, all of a sudden, there was a entire October was quite warm. Even part of the beginning of the November, and all of a sudden, the minimum temperature came down to less than 5 in one day. So these are the trends which are indicative that there is something is not so fine. And if you see this global where different colors are visible, now the overall in the globe, you see the land degradation is affecting over 40% of Earth's surface. And you can see here that where this dark red is there, what it means, it is very high severity of degradation. Then other part also high severity, only some portions which is stable land, ice cap or non-use wasteland, that it's not affected. On the other hand, what is happening? The climate change also affecting the number of undernourished people. There is an estimate that by 2030, they will be exceeding 840 million globally. This was the state of food security and nutrition in the world, SOFI report in 2002. What again happening that if you see Indian example and also Asia, that so far 66 people were living in the, we can say, rural areas. But now migration is taking place and gradually the number of people migrating to small cities or towns is increasing. That brings a lot of new challenges. On the other hand, the climate change is worsening, but the need is increasing. Agriculture needs to produce 50% more food to nutritiously feed 9 billion by 2050. One hand, due to challenges, agriculture will be affected. Other hand, we have to increase the production to feed the growing population. Now, you can see here, we have two ways to live with this type of changes. One is to tolerate the conditions, and second is, other one is to change them. Now, in the climate change context, while we are in the first one, that is tolerating the conditions, but we need to pursue this second option, that is to change them. And I will be presenting that agroforestry is one of the most potential options to make the change. Now, agroforestry And if you see the SDGs, Global Climate Dialogue around agroforestry, how it's shaped. Now, you see the SDGs, of course, I will not go into detail on that, but SDG 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, and 15. These SDGs have evidence that agroforestry can support. Now, if you see that number 2, that is the zero hunger, increasing food production while enhancing the environment. So that we are only presenting the evidence that how it is agroforestry is able to contribute here. Second is the good health and well-being, that the improved quality of drinking water and healthier food. Again, all these SDGs are somehow you can say contributed by the agroforestry. Now, in the global discussion on environment, climate change, all Kyoto Protocol in 2005, it has included agroforestry as an important management tool for climate change mitigation. While RED Plus also emphasizes on agroforestry potential to support indigenous and livelihood benefits while mitigating those effects. IPC third assessment has already indicated in 2001 that agroforestry system, they provide solutions while at the same time delivering various financial and environmental profit, and that has been acknowledged by IPCC third assessment report. And again in 2019, that was the special report, it has quoted agroforestry system as an emerging vital solution for both adaptation and mitigation through efficient management of this agriculture. In fact, in 2015, when that Paris Accord was there, 23 countries identified agroforestry as a mitigation, while 29 countries identify agroforestry as an adaptation strategy. Now, briefly, what agroforestry is there and what is this tree outside forest? Of course, I'm not going to define that terms, but in general, it is the integration of trees and shrubs with annual crop cultivation, livestock production, and other farm activities. That's what in general we call agroforestry. It's a meeting between agriculture and trees. Now, agroforestry is the practice and science of the interface and interactions between agriculture and forestry, involving farmers, livestock, trees, and forest at multiple scales. And if you see those photographs indicating that different combination of agroforestry, where the fruit plants, timber trees, and you can see multi-stories, crops, and all these things are mentioned, tea, coffee, and others. And as of today, agroforestry is found on more than 43% of all agricultural land globally. And at the global level, is currently practiced by more than 1.2 billion people worldwide. Now, I'll now come a little closer to Indian efforts on agroforestry. And as Yashasvi had mentioned, India's agroforestry policy, which was launched by the then President, Pranab Mukherjee, in 2014 during the Third World Congress on Agroforestry at New Delhi. And why it was possible? Because this Indian Council of Agriculture Research, or rather India has been at the forefront ever since organized research on agroforestry started worldwide. And that was the extent that how this agroforestry policy could be formulated. And as on today, after almost a decade, when we recently analyzed that what changes this policy has made, we could see that it has really contributed at the regional, at the local level, at the state, and as well as the national level. Today, if you see these reports, the government forests, they account only for less than 4% of the total timber availability for industrial purpose. And 90% of the industrial requirement are met from agroforestry sector only. And also, this agroforestry provides raw material for more than 27,000 wood-based industry in the country. That's very important, because earlier, before 90s, there was a lot of wood was coming from the forest area. But once after this, when awareness was there, that now forests are serving only watershed functions, they are not harvested. So that's why they are hardly contributing less than 4% of the total timber. Remaining all is coming from tree outside forest, agroforestry, and other area. And you can see the contribution that agroforestry facilitates annual investment of $3.5 billion to tree planting through CSR schemes. This is the report from the MOEFCC. Last year it was presented during UNFCCC at Dehradun. Now, presently, what we are contributing, we are the member of the Interministerial Committee of National Agroforestry Policy. We are also the technical group of Agroforestry Mission, because immediately after this policy was brought, and the two things happened in the same year. One was that the agroforestry was brought under CSR schemes, because earlier agroforestry was not there. And that's why this 3.5 billion, you can see that contribution coming to this agroforestry. Then the third changes made, that on 14 November 2014, Ministry of Environment and Forests, MOEFCC, issued guidelines to all the state and union territories to exempt farm-grown trees. Because one of the major, you can say, problem the farmers were facing, to plant trees is easy, but when they want to harvest, they have to go to the concerned department for getting the permission for harvesting, and then again for transporting. So these were the two bottlenecks. So this was one of the efforts of the agroforestry policy, that as on today, 27 states and UTs have exempted number of farm-grown trees from this regulatory regime. So that was the important contribution of this policy. Then, of course, we are now also member of Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, that is the National Nursery Assessment and Accreditation Committee. Because one of the area where the challenge is there, that quality planting material, which you might have seen that once this in horticulture, when National Mission of MIDS, that is the horticulture mission, was launched, they immediately, the major change was that the quality planting material of fruits was available. In case of forestry, agroforestry, so far, there was not so much emphasis on quality planting material. So this was one of the initiatives. And last year, the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare has now put agroforestry under RKVI as a scheme, and where the major emphasis is now on creating the institutional mechanism for nursery assessment, accreditation, and availability of the quality planting material of the forestry, agroforestry species. And you can see that, in fact, this photograph was taken where the Prime Minister Modi ji is sitting. That was a committee was formed by MOEFCC, where to increase the trees outside forest, and also a national consultation was made, and the recommendation was submitted to the Honorable Prime Minister on 18th February 2018. And here, one of my senior, Dr. Rizvi, is present in that group, and that recommendation was presented to the Prime Minister. And some of these recommendations have since been implemented. And one of the recommendations was bringing out bamboo from the Forest Act 1927. As you are aware, that 2017, now bamboo is out of that Forest Act, and now farmers can grow, harvest, and transport it. Now, how agroforestry is climate resilience? If you can see here, that agroforestry, now in those, here you can see that in the 4 aspects, it is as an adaptation mechanism, while in one, that is the mitigation. Now you can see that water regulation and quality, these are the adaptation help which agroforestry improves. Biodiversity, cultural values, this is another form of adaptation. Of course, then macro climate regulation, that's also adaptation which is facilitated by agroforestry and economic opportunities, which just now I mentioned how agroforestry is contributing. These are the part of the adaptation strategy, while carbon storage is a mitigation opportunity. Now, apart from that, the agroforestry also contributing improving air quality, managing stormwater. I will be giving some example on that. Above and below ground carbon storage, provide habitat for animals, recycle oxygen, and conserve soil and water. Now, how this agroforestry or tree cover is contributing in water budgeting. Now, if you see here that when there is open degraded area, then without trees, okay, without trees, surface runoff and soil evaporation are high, as you can see here, and but it ultimately leads to low, you can see, groundwater recharge, because most of it is going up, transpiration and interception. Now, where this is very high forest area, close productive forest, and they have low surface runoff and soil evaporation, but transpiration and interceptions are very high. Again, here also groundwater recharge is low because water is percolating very slowly here. On the other hand, where agroforestry situation or intermediate canopy cover, which is very common in agroforestry, here low surface runoff and evaporation, as well as intermediate transpiration is there, and there optimum groundwater recharge is there. This is how this agroforestry, and you can see the trees outside forests are contributing in water cycle or water budgeting. Now, some of these examples, we did almost 15 years water studies in Bundelkhand. And one of the success story was the Gadkunda, Dawar, and Parasai Sindh. These are the two areas in the Bundelkhand, where, as you know, Bundelkhand is drought-prone affected area, and there is the major challenge is that semi-arid situations, and agriculture is one of the area which is mostly affected by the drought conditions. And in that scene, when we introduce this agroforestry-based watershed interventions, so what we find that it also helps the not only the ecosystem services, as you know, there are different parts of regulating and then provisioning those services. So how agroforestry-based watershed interventions are contributing? They are enhancing provisioning ecosystem services. How? Crop intensification has increased once watershed functions were found to be optimum, the yield was increased, and also regulating ecosystem services, that is enhance base flow and groundwater, and of course reduce filtration, increase economic water productivity. These were the indicator, and there is a publication in 2014 where we have mentioned about the impact of integrated water development on ecosystem services, and these are indicating how this groundwater recharge is happening and how it is improving. Similarly, better productivity is increasing, and then regulatory services also. And this is again same, emphasizing on that agroforestry with natural resource management interventions happening, that surface runoff is reduced by 20 to 30% of the rainfall, and groundwater recharge is improved 8 to 10%, rather 11% we observed, and of course evapotranspiration also was reduced as earlier. Similarly, there are two districts, rather we work in two districts which are drought prone, malnutrition as well as migration prone in Odisha, and these are the Bolangir and Neopada. With the government of Odisha, we implemented a project for more than 5 years, and where the natural resource management, harvesting of groundwater, as you can see here, the farmers, it was the, you can say, enthusiasm of the farmer, they came forward, and these are the bunding took place, rainwater harvesting was done. Of course, these are some of the figures which indicate that water harvesting from this area, because the rainfall was quite good. But normally in those areas, the farmers were not able to take the second crop because that was the problem. In the second crop, the moisture availability was very, very less. So when this type of interventions were done, then what we found that rainwater harvesting has been possible in those situations, and that water was also available for rabi irrigation. So these are some of the figures. Again, this is also a published paper where you can see that these all help us in improving the you can say groundwater, as also saving the you can say soil. 8.4 tons per hectare soil was saved from erosion. Total saved soil was 714 ton in that area. So, and the choice of species was depending upon the choice by the farmer. So most of these here, the agroforestry was on nutritional aspects. So most of the fruit plants were selected by the farmers, and there were 261,000 plants were planted in 3 years. And ultimately, the project was so successful that government of Odisha has implemented an agroforestry scheme in 10 districts on the basis of the success of this intervention. Now, there are certain agroforestry systems which are attracting now again global interest, and that is what we call smart agroforestry system, where particularly the bioenergy landscapes are also being mentioned. Now, as you can see here, that where integrated food systems, food energy systems. Now, these species are very well common. Pongamia, Jatropha. There are a number of species like Jatropha, Pongamia, Calophyllum, neem, Pimaruba, which is very common. They are coming up naturally also, but they are planted and in this area, in crop with tree. What we call a tree-borne oilseed, TBO. Now, what it has been observed that when we call it biofuel tree species, there the multiple species year-round supply of feedstock for the biofuel is available. Then livelihood improvement ultimately, and the best example was in Karnataka when they have a very successful example of biofuel tree-bound oil seeds. And in fact, the government of Odisha in 2014 implemented uh, a mini mission on tree-bound oil seeds where 14 species were prioritized. Now, where we see that if we compare it with the sunflower biodiesel, castor, palm, and then rapeseed, soybean, ultimately we find that agroforestry-based biodiesel was the best one in terms of economics, in terms of yield and others. And ultimately, it will be helpful in potential GHG saving. But it is need to be scaled up and scaled out. And now, agroforestry, of course, I have already been emphasizing that climate adaptation and mitigation, how it is. It's a regional, you can say, success story that impacts of trees on crop temperatures, yield, flowering, pest and disease incidents to adapt to a changing climate has already been recorded. And also we find that opportunities to store more carbon in soils, vegetation, and grow sustainable food on farm. And also for key staple and commodity crops, rice, wheat, teff, millets. Teff is also a small millet, actually, very common in Southern America earlier, but it's found now globally in many drought-prone areas. Coffee, cocoa also, I have shown some of the slides on them. So diversification as a resilience strategy is one of the options from agroforestry. Now let us see what are those national commitments and how agroforestry can help here. Now, as far as the government of India, we have the commitment here One was that by 2030, sequestration of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional greenhouse gases, that is the carbon dioxide equivalent, and restoration of 26 million hectares of degraded land. As per the land degradation neutrality, to achieve that, we have by 2030, this is to be achieved. Now, also, as per the National Forest Policy 1988, that the forest and tree cover in India should be more than 33%. Of course, as you know, that ISFR report 2021, that it's now around 24%. Still, it is 9% less than what is needed. Now, how that can be done? There are two aspects. One is that restore degraded forests and lands, that is 60% of NDC target we can achieve through it, or also scale up agroforestry. Now, before I go to this one, now, in fact, these are the two efforts, they should go simultaneously. If we improve agroforestry, the pressure on the forest is reduced and the health of the forest is improved. And that's what we have seen successfully. Now you see here, you might have, it's very recent report in Times of India on December 9. The headline was that one race in which India is beating US and UK. And what this report is indicating, as you know, that recently that in the COP conference also these things were debated, that global emissions have reached a record high. It was mentioned again, and every time it is being mentioned. And pledges made by most countries to control emissions are going up in smoke. But India seems to be doing what it promised. Now, how? India is one of the 6 G20 economies on track to keep their climate commencement. And the question is how much is enough in the climate change. But in the newspaper itself, it has indicated the plus one, that was from the government of India side, that its growth story is not coming at cost of emission. Now, we promise 45% reduction from 2005 levels in greenhouse gases released per unit GDP. And how it's going now? For every unit of GDP, India is now providing 33% less emission than 20 years ago. So that is really a good achievement. And of course, the plus two has been more visible. Power capacity is more than 50% green, because 50% of installed power capacity to be non-fossil fuel based on total non-fossil energy capacity to be 500 gigawatts. And now, how it's going? Share of power generation capacity from fossil fuel is down to 54%, which was earlier almost 90%. And also, there are locking away more carbon dioxide than ever. How? More forests and trees to create carbon sink that absorb an additional 2.5 billion to 3 billion tons of emission over 2005. That was the pledge. Since 2005, India has added enough carbon sinks to remove 2 billion tons of emission. But be cautious. Now, what the newspaper also highlights, that it's good that we are achieving, but at global level also, most of the climate pledges are not strong enough to reduce or to curtail this global rise of temperature to less than 2 degrees Celsius. Because these were some commitment, but they are not strong enough. You can see here the global projected emissions. Now, which was required that at globally, if it is around 33 gigawatt, those units are there, then the warming can be curtailed up to 1.5 degrees C. But current policies and business as usual, if it continues, then it will be exceeding to 57. What it means, it will go beyond 2 degrees. So that what it means that the efforts are not so significant. I'm not talking of India, but at global level, they have to be more intense. And also, even in India also, though our energy is coming more on non-fossil, but still we are depending on coal. And in fact, you have to, you can say, balance between the need as well as the demand of the industry. That's one. But another aspect where India has more challenges and bigger risk is extreme weather conditions, which I highlighted a little. And there is some example. Now, there will be more hot days in a year in coming years. Number of days with temperature about 35 degrees Celsius. Earlier, historically, if you see, India was experiencing about 80 days in a year where the temperature will be on 35 degrees. But as on today, now almost, yes, almost 100 days. What it means, 20 days has exceeded, number one. If we compare it with the other countries, especially Australia, historically they were having 19 days in a year. So they are going to about 26. Not, I mean, it's more, but still it is manageable. In US also, earlier it was 11. Now it will be around 23. Even China, our neighbor, they were having hardly four, you can say, uh, where 35 degree and more temperature was observed 4 days. Now it will be around 7. So what it means that India has to struggle more and India has to withstand those increasing temperature. And average annual temperature also could be almost a degree high by 2040. So India presently, historically, we are having temperature about 25.4 degrees by 203, almost in the next 10 years, it will be 26.3. Now you can see this even zero point 0.9 degrees Celsius increase will be tremendous for agriculture and other. So economy will suffer as productive days will be lost, almost minus 6.3 hours per year. That's very significant. So these are the more challenges where we have to do more efforts. But then let's see that what are the scope and opportunity, especially in terms of the uh, agroforestry. Now, as per the recent report, the current agroforestry area in India is about 28.247 million hectares. That is about 9.2% of the total geographical area. Globally, as I had indicated earlier, that agroforestry is found on more than 43% of all agricultural land. But India, still, we have only 19.8% of the agricultural land in India where trees are present. Of course, in one of the study which we did in about 7, 8 years, that existing agroforestry system, now this is about 8 or 9 years back, they are estimated to mitigate 109.34 million tons of carbon dioxide annually, which may offset 1/3 of the total GHG from agriculture sector. Now, this is the where existing agroforestry system. On the other hand, if we improve it, then definitely this more can be contributed. And of course, how much area can be under agroforestry? As we indicated, that now it is 28.247. But a publication which I did in 2013, it indicates that total of 53.32 million hectare of the total reported geographical area could potentially be under agroforestry. And in fact, there is this GROW report, which you are finding here, that is a technical report from NITI Aayog. In fact, for the last 2 years, there are 23 organizations working together, including C4 ICRAF also. And we find that about 55.76 million hectare, that is 16.96% of the total geographical area of the country, is wasteland and are currently underutilized and they are deteriorating due to lack of appropriate resource management or on account of natural causes. So this is the GROW report which is available in the NITI Aayog website, and there we have found out that what are those areas in district wise and then ultimately in each state which can be put under you can say greening in terms of agroforestry or plantation and all that. So if we can do that, this will be greatly helping in meeting the commitment In fact, Government of India has a number of you can see initiative on that. Of course, ICRAF is part of that. And every time the Prime Minister mentions about her made per paid, 3 on each field boundary. And I mentioned about this scheme, which was in 2023. This is the part of the submission on agroforestry. Agroforestry under RKV focus on quality planting method. And recently, on 25th of November, this National Mission on Natural Farming was, you can say, launched by Government of India. Now, are made per paid. That is the tree on each field boundary. We did it as I was mentioning about the agroforestry project, which we implemented in Odisha, where as I mentioned that 261,000 plants were planted as per the need of the farmers. And there, this contribution was in fact visible on all those aspects. That is the on the ground, as I have indicated, that the productivity was improved, the groundwater recharge was better, and there was also another crop in the Rabi was farmers were able to find. Now, if you see if that type, and there were hardly 15 to 20 trees per hectare were planted, where on the bund plantation, then also on the vacant land, and also near the homestead. Of course, for that, motivating farmers, hand holding, and also you can say the availability of the quality planting material has to be ensured. So these are some examples where this can really be done if we take modes. Now, ICRAF, C4 ICRAF, I'll say, we are also implementing a project, Trees Outside Forest in India. That is a program by USAID MOEFCC project, and being implemented by C4 ICRAF with consortium partner. Ultimately, the aim here is significantly expanding area under tree outside forest in 7 Indian states. And these states are, if we start from from Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Odisha, then Rajasthan, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Assam and Odisha. And of course, these were decided by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. And the objective of this project is enabling environment, especially for expansion of trees outside forest. Even after promulgation of this agroforestry policy, still there are some steps which can be taken to speed up, to promote agroforestry. And that is the aim of this project, to provide enabling environment. Then expansion of area of trees outside forest, where economically incentivized and risks are reduced. Then ultimately improve access to quality and actionable information about tree outside forest. And one of the aspects where we are doing here, that we are also, as after implementing a national agroforestry, we found there is a need for a state-specific agroforestry policy. And we are preparing, we have already shared the draft of agroforestry policy for each state. And in fact, Assam has been the first pioneer that the Assam cabinet on 19th November has already accepted the agroforestry policy, the state is for Assam. And in fact, yesterday, this government of Assam has notified on 10th of December, in fact. So now Assam became a state under those 7 tree outside forest scheme, that it has already a dedicated state-specific agroforestry policy, and very soon other states are also will come in. And in fact, like this nature initiative, now what happened that once we are working for almost now 3 years this project, that we find that there is a need, like in this course which we are now involved in, this international training program. So a new course on tree outside forest was conceived, accepted, and approved by ICAR as one of the core forestry course with 2+ credit hours. Of course, ICRAF through TOFI and TNAU have contributed. And in fact, it was on 25th September that ICAR, the 6D committee's recommendation were accepted, and now it is a part of the forestry curricula. So that was a good contribution from this project, and that will be held to students also to understand that how this can be improved, also how they can contribute in this particular sector. Now, let's see a little bit now. A lot of things are mentioned about that, and I mentioned that launch of National Mission on Natural Farming. Uh, that was on 25th November. But historically, if you see, if you go to the history of agroforestry or history of agriculture, even, so you can see that earlier that we were having you can say multi-crop or multi-story cropping systems, and still in homestead, home gardens, this is very significant that where a number of crops are grown together at different stories. At ground level, there will be something different than at the tree component, and then on the like black paper you are seeing here. So those were the systems which the farmers were growing. They are successfully managing those complex multi-storied agriculture systems, like agroforestry with black paper. But as on, you can say after the let's say agriculture in new form, where farmers' ability to manage more complex agriculture systems, it got pushed aside in favor of simplistic monoculture when these high yielding varieties and all these variants. So now they have these systems are only supportive when there is lot of inputs are provided, fertilizer, pesticides, excessive irrigation, or these are the requirement of those so-called HYB and all these things. And ultimately, it has a vast cost to the environment, farmers, and the exchequer. And ultimately, that how this yield will gain. Of course, as we all know about the green revolution in India and also in other countries. But now, there is government of India also is determined, and also at global level also there is a lot of talk of agroecology. Now, there are the terms which are very common to you. That is zero-based natural farming, and in Andhra Pradesh it is APCNF. The natural farming. They have reopened the path to the past and to an alternative future of Indian agriculture by reminding us that soil is alive and is much more than substrate. We have to think it's a biological entity. And water is not just that falls from the skies or is delivered by irrigation. And you have seen the example of water harvesting. Then biodiversity is much more than what is in our national parks. Farmers must be trusted to know and innovate in their own environment. That is the ultimate crux of this natural farming mission. And one size or even a few sizes do not fit all. In every location, every site, it's something new, and you have to explain it like that. But science and technology can serve natural farming. But natural farming must not be forced to serve science. This is the precaution. What are the now? As I find that there are some hands are raised, so but I'll be finishing in next 5 minutes. So what the key messages are there that agroforestry is a potent driver to address challenges related to food, nutrition, fodder, timber, pulp, industrial, medicine, whatever I mentioned here. This is possible through agroforestry, including the biodiversity, employment, and livelihood generation. And as I indicated, that more than 27,000 wood-based industries and employing very large, you can say, number of persons in those wood-based industries. Also, a new paradigm to be considered in intersectoral planning and policy, each state and country. That's why we are going for the state-specific agroforestry policy and scale leading to transformative impact. But this is very important. Awareness and capacity development like this nature of stakeholder. It's not only the farmers, but policymakers, researchers, practitioners, development partners, farming community, and private sector is very imperative to achieve the transformative impact. So if these three messages are, I think, from my presentation, and also if you see, with 50% increase in food demand by 2050, India cannot afford to convert cropland into forest for mitigating the climate change effects. We can, however, create that kind of condition through on-farm agroforestry without sacrificing food production. And agroforestry involves growing trees and crops together in a well-planned and systematically managed cycle. Now, this is very important in agroforestry management. Managed cycle as a specialized way of farming outside the forest, and the cycle is repeated. Now, I think during Corona, you must be aware in the second wave, there was a lot of demand for the oxygen and how much how crucial it was. Now, if you see, at world over, there are, for every person, there are 422 trees. And here are some examples. Canada is having 10,163 average. Greenland, 499. Australia, more than 3,000. US also even 699. France, 203. Ethiopia also such a drought-prone area, 143. China, our neighbor, 130. UK, small country, 47. But India, we have, we have only 28 trees per capita. So what it means, there is a greater availability. So there is need for more planting, there is area also available. And you see that example here, it will take $76 trillion to create oxygen for all humans on Earth. But trees do it for free. And I think with this, I thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing here. And now over to you, Ankur, Rohit.
चैट बॉक्स ऑन कर दीजिए रोहित जी। और जो भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स की क्वेरी है, वैसे लेक्चर बहुत बेहतरीन रहा सर का, मुझे लगता है तो कोई क्वेरी होगी नहीं, फिर भी 15 मिनट का एक प्रोटोकॉल है डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशन का, तो आप चैट बॉक्स ऑन कर दीजिए। जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स पूछना चाहते हैं अपना क्वेश्चन सर से, वो पूछ सकते हैं। रोहित जी आप पढ़ के सर को बताएंगे जो भी क्वेरी होगी, ठीक है?
ओके सर।
सर लोगों की सराहना आ रही है कि वेरी नाइस प्रेजेंटेशन, एक्सीलेंट प्रेजेंटेशन।
Okay. No, that's fine, but I saw during the presentation there were some hands were raised. I don't know, but now I'm not finding. So anyway, I mean, it's welcome if there are any queries. And in that presentation, I have mentioned about my email ID also. If now or even later also. Yes. But
एक क्वेश्चन आया है रोहित जी, उसको पढ़िए आप।
Sir, there is one question from Harkirat Singh. The question is,
yeah, no, in fact, that is also supported. Agroforestry is to incorporate.
yeah, agroforestry trees to incorporate in wheat rice system of Punjab.
Okay, so if this is a question now, as on today, eucalyptus and poplar were the main species which were introduced in, I mean, low Indo-Gangetic region, including Punjab, Haryana, Western UP and other. But gradually now, there is another species which is coming prominently and which has been, you can say, favored by the industry also, Melia compacta, Melia dubia. So that is the new introduction. So gradually, I mean, this species is also coming up. But in, again, the major area was under poplar and wheat system. That's very common in the, so that was there. But now there are a number of other trees also coming up, which are taken up, because ultimately the success depends upon how the industry takes up those wood, because ultimately they are the buyer. So now there are more choice of species. but ultimately this will depend the quality planting material availability. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Then we have next question from Shubhraj, and the question is, what best agroforestry practices with mustard crop?
Now again, this will depend upon the area where this is to be practiced. Number one, marketing, because ultimately this entire economy is based on marketing, availability of market, and where it is located. So we have to see that, and of course, like in many areas, mustard also, and along with poplar and those species has been grown and very successfully also. But again, you have to see that in which area you want to grow it and where the market is available. So economics is always based on this market demand and yes, timely availability of the those things.
Then we have next question from Dr. R.L. Roth, and the question is, which plant is best suited for Central India?
Uh, Again, I just gave an example, like in Indo-Gangetic region, starting from, let us say, Jammu region to entire covering Central India and Indo-Gangetic region, their major species are, number one was, of course, earlier, it is eucalyptus, poplar, then number of, now there are number of species which are also being implemented, the fruit based like amla in central India, mostly like in UP and other area, we see that amla, especially Pratapgarh, Allahabad, and all those areas, see amla, that is the gooseberry, very common improved material of that, and number of other species also. And I think in somewhere I have mentioned. So far, the major emphasis was due to availability of quality plant limiter was on more exotic, like I mentioned, poplar, eucalyptus, and other. But gradually now other species are also picking up, and especially on the bunt singer, farmers are now liking the teak also. And again, in teak also improved material. Otherwise, the teak, traditionally in forestry, we know the long rotation species, 150 years. But now this teak, and depending upon the market demand, it's also being planted by the farmers. Even in Maharashtra and other area, and even in Bundelkhand, we find that farmers were wanting to plant teak, and they have planted also. And also bamboo. Bamboo, the government of India, in fact, now this is the third bamboo mission, where there is lot of ultimately the in the third mission is main emphasis on entrepreneurship or use of bamboo for the industrial purpose. So those particular bamboo species which are demanded by the industry are being promoted.
Thank you, sir. Then we have next question. So, sir, which tree species have highest
Yes.
carbon sequestration potential in agroforestry?
Yeah. In fact, yes. This is normally what happens. If you want very high carbon sequestration, then you have to also see the rotation and number of years which the tree can stand. Otherwise, like those fast-growing species, I will come back to eucalyptus, poplar, and other, where the rotation is very short. But there, the contribution of let's take an example of eucalyptus. And in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, eucalyptus is planted once and then again harvested. Again the rotation depending upon the need and all. Started earlier, it was 6 to 8 years. It has come down even in 3 to 4 years also. But then it is not planted yet. It again sprouts back, and at least economically 5 to 7 harvest can be taken. In that situation, there is more carbon sequestration. But otherwise, those long-term species, some and others, definitely their carbon sequestration potential is higher. And then bamboo has very high.
Okay, thank you, sir. Then we have next question from Dr. Ajinta. The question is, sir, really fortunate to listen such a great talk. Are we achieved the target of 33% tree cover as of now? And can we expect as a new NFP considering the current trends of climate action?
As I indicated, now one thing is very clear. We are not having now. We cannot add more area under forest. That's very true. Rather, as you can see, the number of reports coming back, that the area is also getting reduced. There are two ways we can do. One, I mentioned that growing trees outside forest, agroforestry is one option. Another, that grow report Niti Aayog have mentioned, that how much area is available where there is potential for planting. That's the second. Presently, as per the ISFR 2021, because we are waiting, if the 2023 report is yet to come, but the area under trees outside forest is only to 24%. It means still we are lacking 9% still. So to achieve that, as I told, more area cannot be added. But in forest, what we can do, improve the quality of the forest. Because what is happening, more than 40% area under forest also is degraded. And that's why the productivity of Indian forest is quite low. If it has to be improved, improvement in the forest issue. So that is the one aspect where improvement of the existing forest area, especially the degraded forest area, and then adding trees outside forest. And I just now indicated that how these government of India also emphasizing number of schemes I just mentioned. But then, I mean, these are the efforts. And if we are succeeding, if we go more and more on that, we'll be able to meet. In fact, there has been another report that I just mentioned, that how the area under forest is improving, and every time you see that there is good report on coming. But there is another thing happening. The contribution of forest in carbon sequestration is due to this climate change also is not to that extent it was earlier. Almost it was earlier 7%, now it has come down to 6%. In the same forest area, which was contributing about 7%, now it is contributing about 6% due to the changing climate situation and all that. So you have to balance all these things. And as I mentioned, though we are going a little better way than other countries, but still we are also far away. Globally also, every country is far away than the commitment.
Thank you, sir. Then we have next question. Very nice. First greeting, very nice presentation, sir. And the question is, what is the difference between agroforestry practices from Northeast Hill region in comparison to plain land?
Thank you, Saurabh. Yes. In fact, the major difference is there. One thing is very, as you are already in Northeast, you know that in the Northeastern region, the major forest area is not under the, you can say, government line, that is under the community law of that. The species are quite different than as compared to the central India. But there are options in Northeastern also. In fact, it was there is a publication which we did in 1994. It's available in the your ICR complex library also, where we you can say documented 21 agroforestry species. Agroforestry practices system, and one of them is that which you are very familiar, that large cardamom and utis, that is the Alnus nepalensis, and I think that is local called utis. That was about 200 years back when large cardamom was introduced by the Nepalese farmers in Sikkim area under the utis forest. And how synchronization was there, how it has functioned so nicely. Even in Nagaland, if you go, this particularly elder, I'll call it elder, it is called in English, vertically it is Alnus nepalensis. So elder-based agroforestry, and there is a publication from the Nagaland Agriculture in 81, where elder-based agroforestry, where they have indicated about 100 years old elder plantations where there is chilies, coffee, and number of crops are grown together. So there are a number of successful examples in Northeast also, and in those in state-wise also. And in ICR, that Agripon agroforestry, the 4 centers were there: Sikkim, Meghalaya, Arunachal, Manipur, and of course Tripura also. they have already identified the agroforestry systems suitable for those local areas. So you'll have to refer to library. But yes, if you need specific, then we can be in touch also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think we have solved all the queries. Ankur, sir?
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। एक एक पार्टिसिपेंट्स की क्वेरी को आपने सर रिजॉल्व किया। जो उनकी डाउट्स थे, डाउट क्लियरिंग सेक्शन का एक जो उद्देश्य होता है कि जो पीपीटी में कुछ डाउट्स या कुछ संशय रह गए हों उनको सॉल्व करना। आपके बारे में सर जितना कह पाऊं वो बहुत कम है। एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री में ये समझ लो कि बृहस्पति हैं आप। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि मेरे आग्रह पे सर आपने लेक्चर को डिलीवर किया और आपने अपना बहुमूल्य समय दिया। मैं एग्रीमीट फाउंडेशन के सेक्रेटरी नहीं, मैं आपके स्टूडेंट के नाते आपका धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करता हूं कि आगे भी यदि भविष्य में कभी कोई लेक्चर और सहयोग की एकेडमिक एक्टिविटीज में आवश्यकता होगी तो आप अपना आशीर्वाद जरूर प्रदान करेंगे।
Thank you, Dr. Ankur, and thank you everybody who patiently here listen this conversation. I know I could, if there was more time, we could have replied each question. I know there are a number of queries which are still there, but I think there will be opportunity to. And I have already shared my presentation with the with Ankur. I think it will be circulated to you also. Thank you very much.
जी सर, मैं अभी जस्ट सर्कुलेट करता हूँ। जी, थैंक यू।
And for giving me this opportunity, and thank you. All the best. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good night. So I'll be leaving now.
जी, okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.